Iman had a good reason for hiding her daughter. His daughter fell into a dark hole that almost killed her after Bowie died. She broke every promise, hurt everyone who cared about her, and filled the void with things that could hurt her. After that, something changed. She put out a record in April 2025 that went straight to number 3. A lot of people bought her drawings. She was better than her parents, but still looked like them. People who knew her before couldn't even tell the difference between her and the broken girl she used to be. David Bowie was born Dave Robert Jones on January 8, 1947, in Brixham, London. His home address was 40 Stanfield Road. People from the middle class still felt the effects of World War II in that rough part of the city. Margaret Peggy Burns, his mother, worked as a waitress at a nearby movie theater. Haywood Stanton John Jones, his dad, worked for a charity for kids. Bowie often said that he was a real wartime baby because of how his environment had shaped him. It made him feel a strange mix of things to go from the noisy city of Brixton to the quiet fields of Yorkshire. He loved dancing and stood out as a stubborn and artistic kid by the time he was 6. Things in Bowie's life changed for good when he was 15. It took place because of a fight over Carol, a girl. Bowie's best friend George Underwood had been his friend since they were 9 years old. Underwood set up a date for Carol, but Bowie told him she liked him more. Underwood was so mad the next day that he hit Bowie in the left eye at school. That one punch did a lot of damage. Bowie's left lens never closed up again. It made one eye look darker, which made his eyes look strange and interesting. After the fact, Bowie thanked Underwood for hurting him. That hurt eye became a part of his signature look and helped people remember him. Another important person in Bowie's life was his bigger half-brother Terry Burns. Terry exposed Bowie to rock music and books by Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg. However, Terry had mental health problems. Bowie saw him go to and from the hospital. He killed himself by stepping in front of a train in 1985. Bowie was very sad about this. After a long time, Bowie wrote the song Jump, they say, to deal with his sadness and guilt. He often wrote about loss and fear in his art because of the dark mark Terry's death left on him. When Bowie was 16, he was done with school and supposed to get a normal job. His mother got him a job as an electrician's helper, but Bowie had other ideas. He became hooked on jazz when he was 13 and learned to play the saxophone. To try to become a star, he played in bands like the Conrads and the King Bees by 1963. Lisa Jane, the first song, didn't do well on the charts. Every new band he joined and every song he put out didn't get any attention. Bowie kept going even though nothing was sticking. He chose to change everything about himself when nothing else worked. After more failed single careers, he moved to Scotland to live in a Buddhist monastery in 1967. He learned how to meditate and do mime and acting there. It was an odd move for a rock artist to make, but it changed how he looked on stage. When he got back to London, he formed a comedy group called Feathers. In strange shows, they mixed folk music, poems, and mime. Bowie was different. Every time he failed, it made him want to write in new ways. He also chose to change his name that same year. At first, he appeared as Davy Jones, but in America, Davy Jones from the Monkees was already a well-known singer. He didn't want anyone to get the wrong idea, so he changed his name to Bowie. Jim Bowie and his famous knife in the United States. Bowie liked the thought of a tough person who could go their own way. Bowie was in at least 5 bands that didn't work out between 1962 and 1967. The Buzz, the Lower Third, the King Bees, and the Mananish Boys. They didn't have any luck. The BBC even made fun of his sound and called him a beginner. Bowie wouldn't give up, though. Most people would have given up when his first song, Lisa Jane, didn't do well. Even years later, hundreds of copies that didn't sell sat in someone's garage until they were thrown away. Bowie didn't stop, though. As things went wrong, they only made him more driven. In 1967, his first record with the same name didn't do well either. Bowie had nowhere to go after his record company fired him. At that point, his girlfriend suggested that they go see Lindsay Kemp's comedy show. Bowie thought acting was silly. Kemp, on the other hand, played Bowie's record before his show. As a result, Bowie went. He changed because of what he saw. Kemp was bold and liked to act. Bowie began going to school. He found out how to move, put on outfits, and keep the crowd in line. Soon he was in Kemp's mime show Pierrot in Turquoise, which was also known as the Looking Glass Murders. Bowie's strange side trip into mime would affect every stage image he made after that. After years of failing, he finally had his big break. Bowie released Space Oddity on July 11, 1969, just a few days before people walked on the moon. The time was just right. The world was interested in space, and Bowie provided music for them. This song made it to number 5 on the UK charts, Bowie's first real hit, but there was still a chance of failure. The album didn't sell well, and neither did the next 6 tracks. Changes and other well-known songs didn't start out as hits. David Bowie put out The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and The Spiders from Mars in 1972. Things never went back to normal. Ziggy was an alien rock star. He had bright red hair, clothes that sparkled, and a crazy energy that didn't follow any rules. Bowie did something that no one else had dared to do before. He told everyone that this character was bisexual. He wore women's clothes on stage and in interviews and was very open about being gay. They were shocked and angry, but some people felt freer. That was important to fans because they saw someone who wasn't afraid to be himself. It changed not only rock music, but also how people thought about who they were when it came out on June 16, 1972. Fashion went in a very different way because of it, as did the LGBTQ+ movement. In 1975, Bowie changed into a new persona, the thin white fake. This figure was dark and showed up in station to station. Bowie was losing himself in the part. Mostly cocaine, drugs had taken over his life. He was taking in up to 10 grams every day. He also ate strange things, mostly red peppers and milk. He didn't get much sleep, and his weight dropped to less than 100 lb. The Duke was cold and mysterious, and he talked a lot about strange supernatural things. Bowie later said he didn't remember much about making the record. He talked about fascism and Nazi symbols in interviews, which he later said were caused by his drug use and anxiety. From late 1974 to 1976, Bowie was known as the Thin White Duke. He left Los Angeles for Berlin to clean up, but the damage to his image was already done. That loss went off the charts in May 1976. When Bowie got back to London's Victoria Station, he greeted fans from an open car. Many people thought he was making the Nazi salute when they saw a picture of him with his arm raised. It was called the Victoria Station incident, and people were furious, especially after he said things that were pro-fascist. Bowie said he wasn't trying to salute, he was just waving, but it was too late. He said some troubling things, and old pictures of him with Nazi items made the story even worse. In the same year, Bowie told reporters that a fascist boss would be good for Britain. In one talk, he also said that Adolf Hitler was one of the first rock stars. Both fans and reviewers were shocked. The comments led to protests and helped the Rock Against Racism movement grow. Years later, Bowie would say sorry, saying that cocaine and the Duke character were to blame. He had left that part of himself behind by 1977. In 1976, Bowie and Iggy Pop were stopped at the border between Poland and Russia while on tour in Europe. They had Nazi books in their bags, including one about Ussif gerbils, which was found by guards. Bowie said they were for a movie project, but the news stories made him look like he supported the Nazis. The event took place at Brest on the border and added to his growing problems. It was one of the worst times of his career, and he didn't start to fix his image until he got sober in Berlin. Bowie had also turned off some of his British fans with the album Young Americans, which came out in 1975. He switched from glam rock to soul and R&B, and worked at Sigma Sound Studios with Luther Vandross and Carlos Alamer. Fame, which he wrote with John Lennon, was his first U.S. #1 in July 1975. The title song got to number 28 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100. The highest point for Young Americans on the Billboard 200 was number 9. Many of his longtime fans felt like he had turned his back on them, though, and British reviewers were not as happy. Bowie later said that the sound was the smashed remains of ethnic music because it still exists in the age of rock music. He knew that it had upset some people, but it made him famous in the U.S. Bowie and Lennon were friends, which led to some crazy stories. Lennon is said to have made Bowie eat an egg that was 1,000 days old and had been cooked in horse pee while they were in Hong Kong in 1977. Bowie told GQ that it was the grossest thing he had ever eaten. At a restaurant, they were going to try monkey brains when someone recognized Lennon and asked them to come backstage. It is said that Lennon gave him the bad egg as a joke. People thought this story about Bowie was true because he told it so often. That trip had a lot of other strange things happen. He also remembered that Lennon drank snake blood, which is a technique that can be seen in traditional Chinese medicine. This happened after they were taken to a back room at another restaurant. It was another story about crime and bad humor on the road that showed how random Bowie's life could be. Bowie would rather be on boats or trains than in the air for many years. Between 1972 and 1977, he wouldn't fly at all. Instead, he took ships like the Queen Elizabeth II to cross the Atlantic. He was scared of even short trips. Bowie once said, "If it flies, it's death." He meant that he thought he might not come back if he ever flew again. He wouldn't get better with planes until a lot later. He didn't like following the rules. No one knew what to think when David Bowie and Brian Eno chose to work together in 1976. The name of the record was Low. RCA Records didn't know what to do with it. Low had two sides that were very different. The first one had a lot of short, strange songs that were almost pop. The second one was mostly long, moody instrumental songs. Some of the songs, like Warhawa and Subterraneans, were not at all standard. They were creepy and cold, like soundtracks. Bowie's voice came in like ghosts. Ono led the whole process. He had been making his own acoustic music. RCA put off releasing the record in the US for 3 months because they thought it was too strange. They didn't advertise it much because they were afraid of losing money. America didn't get it at first, but it went to number 2 in the UK. People slowly became aware of how brave it was. It wasn't just a record that Bowie and Eno were making. They changed the way rock music sounds forever. That change didn't end. Heroes came out in 1977, and Lodger came out in 1979. Heroes was more lively and louder than Low. Eno pushed the synths to strange new places while Robert Fripp played these crazy, jagged guitar parts. Tony Visconti, the producer, set up 3 mics at different heights for Bowie to sing the title track. That's why his voice is so strong and raw. The faraway mics started to work when Bowie sang louder. Heroes got to number 3 in the UK and number 35 in the US. More things could go wrong with Lodger. There were different styles, but it didn't work right away. It got to number 4 in the UK and 20 in the US. Critics often didn't understand. A lot of them thought Bowie was lost, but after years, people heard how much these songs had changed them. A lot of artists, like Joy Division and Gary Newman, got ideas from this strange and daring time. Bowie had already left Los Angeles by that time. He lived in a dark house on Denny Drive from 1974 to 1976. Coke had messed him up. He got by on milk, peppers, and being paranoid. He believed witches were going to take his soul. It was a bad time. Bowie said that L.A. was the worst place he had ever been. It was 1976, and he was tired and scared. He and Iggy Pop moved to Europe. He was possibly saved. Those were the darkest days of my life, he noted. Berlin helped him hide. It still had the wall split in it, and it felt heavy and tight. It didn't matter if a star walked by. His music was filled with that strange, quiet mood. It's in every note of Warsaw, Art Decade, and even Heroes, which is about 2 lovers kissing on the wall. All 3 records had the same sense of risk. Low was thought to be bad for his career by RCA. Not much was said about it. At first, American fans didn't know how to use Heroes. People said that Lodger was the weakest of the three, but everyone changed their minds over time. The series is now known as one of Bowie's best works. Joy Division and Newman, two of the first people to work with electronics, both used it as a model. Bowie himself said that those years were his DNA. The records came out again in 2017 in a box set. A New Job in a Different City. In the 1970s, what seemed crazy now seems like a crazy idea. Bowie was also making movies at the same time he was making those songs. He played Thomas Jerome Newton in The Man Who Fell to Earth in 1976. The part felt so much like who he was, weak and strange. The director, Nicholas Ruegg, chose him after seeing the film Cracked Actor. Even though Bowie was heavily addicted at the time, he was smart and nice on set. A lot of the cuts and silences in the movie felt like they were from a dream. Some reviewers didn't like it. Some people loved Bowie's acting as the alien. It made $3 million around the world and cost $5 million to make. Rowe said that Bowie didn't seem to be acting at all, as if he had really sunk to earth. People kept being surprised by him. He played Jarth, the Goblin King, in Labyrinth in 1986. Jim Henson thought about the roles of Prince or Michael Jackson. Bowie was great in the end. People knew him for his famous tight pants. He sang Magic Dance and swung crystal balls around his hands. The movie took $25 million to make and didn't do well in the US at first. In Japan, it made $9 million, and in the UK, it made $5 million, but it was big outside of Japan. As time went on, it became a cult favorite. At midnight shows, people still dress up as Jarth. He was also a vampire before that. He played John Baylock in The Hunger in 1983. He played an ageless who lived for 200 years but aged in just a few days. When Bowie was 36 years old, he looked like an old man who was dying because he had spent hours putting on fake hair and skin. At the start of the movie, Bowie and Catherine Deneuve were seen in a bar while Bauhaus played in the background. It only made $3 million around the world on a budget of $10 million, and reviewers were split. Some people didn't like the way it looked, while others did. After many years, even Bowie laughed and said that he had played a 130-year-old person when I was 38. Fans still think that The Hunger is one of his coolest and scariest parts. He also made short films when he wasn't starring in long ones. To promote his song, Blue Jean, he made a funny little video that won him a Grammy in 1984. Bowie played Vic, an awkward fan, and Screaming Lord Byron, a cocky rock star. He was making fun of himself. Bowie could still make fun of himself when he was at his most popular. The video won Best Video at the Grammys. It's one of the few awards he won while he was still living. Angie Bowie and David Bowie got married for the first time in 1970 at a small record office in Kent. They didn't seem to get along. In the end, Angie said that they got married so she could work in the UK. They were together for 10 years, even though Bowie told her before the wedding that he wasn't really in love with her. During those years, there were lots of parties, wild stories, and friendly chats. Dunk Zoe Jones, their boy, was born on May 30, 1971. She was very important in Bowie's life at that time. She gave him ideas for his famous Ziggy Stardust character and some of his most famous songs, but things started to fall apart. It was all about drugs, cheating, and crimes. Angie even said she saw Mick Jagger and Bowie in bed together one time. They were no longer married by 1980. Anig got away with $500,000. She left Duncan with Bowie. She thought that becoming a dad would help him calm down. Angie later said that she was bad for Duncan's life, and the two of them didn't talk much for years. Bowie's next big love story was very different. In 1990, a common friend put him in touch with supermodel Iman Abdul-Majid. Bowie was crazy about her from the first time they met. He told everyone that she was going to marry him. At first, Iman wasn't sure. She had already been married, and she didn't want another life in the spotlight, but Bowie was set on it. He kept being nice to her, like bringing flowers to the airport to meet her or fixing her shoelaces in the street. She started to like him too over time. His first marriage was very wild, but this one was based on honor and privacy. Being a famous pair wasn't something they were interested in. They wished to have a calm and content life together. Their wedding took place in Lausanne, Switzerland, on April 24, 1992. It was a small, private event. On June 6, they had a bigger party in Florence. Iman would always remember that day because it rained. People told her that it was lucky that it rained on a wedding. They were right. They loved each other very much and wanted to have a family, but it wasn't easy to get pregnant. Iman was about 40 years old. She tried for 15 months but couldn't do it. Then, just when she thought it would never happen, she found out she was pregnant. Iman also did something traditional for Somalis because someone told her it would help. She held the baby of her friend Christy Brinkley all day in the hopes that it would bring her happiness. Soon after, she and Bowie were going to have a baby. Alexi Zara Jones, their daughter, was born at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York on August 15, 2000 at 5:06 a.m. We call her Lexi. She weighed 7 pounds, 4.5 ounces. Bowie was there the whole time and even cut the wire. He later said, "I found happiness by accident." Lex's name was picked out with care. The name Alexandria means defender of people. Zara was a nod to Iman's Somali background because her grandfather had changed her name from Zara to Iman. The couple thought that Lex's name showed what they were like and where they were from. Both Bowie and Iman did their best to make sure Lexi had a private and normal life. They kept Lexi away from cameras even though they were well known. They put her in New York public schools so she could grow up like any other kid. Iman put up a picture of Lexi when she was 18. Right away, modeling companies and designers called, but Iman said no. She told them Lexi wasn't interested in becoming a model. Lexi should have her own life, free from the stress of fame, she said. David Bowie was busy making his last album, Black Star, and recording his song, Sue or in a Season of Crime, in June and July 2014. However, his life was changing in a way that would never go back. That's when they told him he had liver cancer. Almost no one knew. Ivo Van Hove, who was directing Lazarus, and director Tony Visconti were the only people Bowie told. They found out in January 2015. Not even the artists who played on Blackar knew. After chemo, Bowie kept working even though it hurt him. His health got worse and his hair fell out, but his drive to be artistic never went away. He was in New York on December 7, 2015, for the opening night of Lazarus. That was the last time he would be seen in public. He had always cared about his comfort. He didn't want everyone to see him die. The fight would last 18 months, ending in January 2016. It was a strong reminder of how strong and dedicated he was. Bowie died on his 69th birthday, January 10, 2016, just 2 days after Black Star came out. It was like thunder when the news came. It said that Bowie had died peacefully at home and was shared by his son Duncan Jones. No one outside of his close friends and family knew about the illness. Black Star, with its strange, dark sound and unclear words, was a gift to fans before they left. His body was burned in secret in New Jersey on January 12. There will be no funeral or show. There were fans from all over the world at paintings and outside of his New York apartment. Sales of music went through the roof. Lots of tributes came in. Bowie left behind such a huge impact that it felt like a whole era had ended. Lexi, his 15-year-old daughter, felt that loss the most. Alexandria Lexi Jones and her dad had always been close. His sudden death broke her heart. Later, she wrote that she was empty and using bad habits to try to fill the void. Amid all the attention, she felt lost, angry, and by herself. Lexi shut herself off and pushed people away. Things were bad and dark at that time. Lexi was in a huge amount of pain that no one could stop, even though she had her mother Iman and her half, brother Duncan. She started to fight with her family, saying mean things to make them feel how sad she was. Lexi would think of this time and call it the time when her family was destroyed. She broke up relationships that were strong before. The pain changed how she saw herself. Lexi even called herself a monster because it was less painful to say that she was scared and sad. It was a way for her to hide the pain herself. Over time, Lexi would be honest about how she felt. However, the cuts left behind deep scars. That's when she started making art. Lexi found that making art, like drawing, painting, or writing, helped her deal with the chaos inside. Over the years, this way of expressing herself turned into a love that shaped her future. It also helped her get better. She slowly stopped seeing herself as David Bowie's daughter and started to love the person she was becoming. By the time Lexi was 24, it was impossible to miss how she had changed. Vogue wrote an article about how beautiful she was, praising her high cheekbones, deep eyes, and easy style. All of them remind her of how beautiful her parents were. Her style was bold and unique, with a mix of her father's toughness and her mother's class. It was more than just jeans. Lexi had something to say. Her cutting-edge hair and clothes paid homage to her dad's glam rock past, but they also felt new and like they were made just for her. And then in April 2025, Lex made a surprise musical appearance. Xandri, her first record, was a unique mix of rock, electronic, and soul music. Starlight Echoes, the first song, shot to the top of the charts all over the world. Rolling Stone said that her sound was a brave and welcome tribute to Bowie's genius while still being very much Lex's own. It went to number 3 on the Billboard 200 and sold more than 150,000 copies in its first week. Almost overnight, Lexi became known as one of the most interesting new artists of her time. Lexi did more than just listen to music, though. She also painted, put together outfits for the movie Famous 2023, and put on her own art shows. A few of her works went for as much as $250. Some people thought she was a Renaissance woman because she seemed to be able to easily switch between different worlds. With each new creative project, she carved out a road that was different from her father's, but she was always influenced by him. In May 2025, Lexi was once again in the news. This time it was about her personal life. She told everyone about her relationship with British singer Sonny James. They were seen together at Glastonbury and on social media. It was clear they were dating, and they often worked together. There was a lot of talk about them. It was clear she wasn't just carrying on a tradition as she made new work and got more attention. She was changing it and making it her own. This showed that pain can make you stronger and that even the worst losses can lead to new starts.